Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're going to do a Seascape today. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I'm going to do it a little bit bigger. I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. I think it would be fun. I kind of group landscapes. I know people break them up in landscape, seascapes, but you know, sometimes I do a landscape that has just a tiny little bit of ocean in it and vice versa. So, you know, I just kind of group them all together. But I had several requests for more seascapes, so I thought I would show one up here and we'll do it a little bit bigger. Let's talk about that in just a moment. I want to show you something because I don't show it on all my videos, and if you haven't watched all my videos, which you should be doing anyway, but watching all my videos, is about brushes, about, you know, cleaning your brushes and stuff. Now, this is a brush that I use. Some of you might have seen this. I've shown it on a couple of the landscapes. I love it. It's a big round. It's one of our big bristle rounds, and I took it out there, hammered it flat, and I use it for making grasses and stuff. And I'm working on a big Western painting over there. It's what I call my day off painting, my Sunday painting. So I work on it once a week. And anyway, last Sunday I was working on some grasses. And what I do is I let some of the paint dry up in it, and it makes it even more super stiff. So this makes a great grass brush for doing long prairie grass. But, you know, they say, okay, now you've ruined the brush. No, you don't. You can go grab, and I got this off of Amazon. This is just a regular hand sanitizer, and that's if you can even find it right now, you know, with everything that's going on. But the basic part of a hand sanitizer is alcohol, okay? So it's right around 60, the best hand sanitizers are 60, 70% alcohol. So most of them are going to have that content. But that cleans out your brushes really well. So what I do is I just... especially, you know, with the Heritage. So this paint's been in here for a week, and I'll put some hand sanitizer out. It'll clean your hand. You'll see right immediately, out comes the yellow. See? Cleans it right out instantaneously here, and you just rub it around a little bit. Might have to do it a couple times depending on how much paint and stuff you leave in it. But if you leave paint and stuff in brushes, don't ever worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. You're painting with a non-toxic, you know, nice acrylic. And so see, I'm back to my bristle color here. But, and then you just, what I do is I just give it a quick rinse into some water and stuff. But, you know, I probably, you know, if you wanted this super clean, probably do it a couple of times. But bristles, you know, a natural hair bristle I hear, it's a boar bristle. You know, they do stain a little bit. This is a little phthalo stain and stuff in it. But cleans it all out really nice. And you'll do that with... all your brushes. That'll work with all the brushes. The fusion brushes I just cleaned up here a few minutes ago. I just cleaned up my 3/4 inch flat that I was using. So it's all wet here, cleaned. It's all cleaned right back up. I left some paint in it. So if you ever leave paint in something, don't worry about it. I mean, this is one reason why I love this. It's not ruined because, you know, there's videos that I've done in the florals. I've talked to you about water being your solvent. You have what's called a drying time and a curing time of your paints, okay? So the drying time is when all the moisture is out of it and you can't move it anymore. The cure time is when the paint does a process that we call coalesce. All the individual micelles of different parts of the paint are all coming together, bonding and locking together. That's called a cure. Now, that doesn't happen for 24 hours within the Heritage. But, so within that 24 hours... time, water can be the solvent of the acrylics. That's what it is. That's what I use it in a lot of blending techniques. You'll see me doing solvent blending and stuff with water. I'll let the acrylics dry up a little bit and then blend with them. After that 24 hours, water is no longer the solvent because it's cured. It's now hard. Water, it repels water actually, and so water can't enter it and solvent it up. But alcohol will always remain its solvent, okay? And that's one reason why we varnish our paintings, protect them, you know. Yeah, but, you know, how many people are walking around and going to dump alcohol all over your paintings hanging on the wall? That doesn't really happen. But, so 60%. Now, sometimes, you know, I've had it, our varnishes, polyurethane varnishes and stuff like that are higher concentrations of polyurethane. Those are harder micelles to break apart, and so you may have to go to something. This I got at my local Walmart. It's you can just get it in the drug part of it, and it's an antiseptic. It's 91% isopropyl alcohol. That takes away just about anything. So and it's used as an antiseptic. But hand sanitizer, it's fantastic. And so if you want to, we used to always go soap and water and do all that kind of stuff. And people have different types of soaps, likes and dislikes of soaps. Lately, in the last couple of years, I've just kept a bottle of hand sanitizer by my place all the time. And if I remember, when I'm done painting, I just rinse all my brushes in some hand sanitizer and some water, and I put them away. Because the hand sanitizer is made, to be on your hands. And that works great. And then if I have a problem or something like that, I can go to a more heavier one. But if I forget about it, hand sanitizer will still take it out. Soap won't take it out after, several days. Soap will have a hard time breaking the bond, but alcohol will always break the bond in the Heritage paints. So it's really nice. So if you leave something into your paints, into your Heritage paints, you leave it into your brushes or something like that, or you want to clean something back off, this hand sanitizer is working really great, okay? So yeah, that's one of the things we just, that Heritage, that we always made sure. I've always used alcohol that way. Anyway, let's go into the Seascape. This is going to be a lot of fun. I love painting the Seascapes. And in doing the Seascape, I like to, I've been working on the boards with you for the Landscape Challenge with the 11 by 14, which is a good size because that just fits. You can go down to your local store and you can get a photo frame, and that drops into the photo frame. Really nice. But when you talk about doing really nice landscapes or seascapes, I like to go what I call more widescreen. Okay, matter of fact, what I call it is 1080p. I like to go 1080p. That's the widescreen TVs, the flat screen TVs that you get now. They're called 1080p. They're 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, and so everyone calls it a 1080p format. But that makes a pretty good type of format, for your painting. On this particular one here, this is 24 inches by 14 inches. Now this time is, when I go that, up to about that size, this is a piece of a 1/4 inch. You could use a Baltic birch. You could use a red oak ply. This is a Baltic birch ply, 1/4 inch, that I got over at the Home Depot. And I get a big 48 by 24 sheet of it for $10. And I just cut off a little bit of it, so it's 1/4 inch. But you could put it on anything. But the thing is, with some of the seascapes, some of the landscapes, when I do it, we start to take them more what we call widescreen look to them. And that gives you a little bit more further width into the landscape than it does the height, and it draws you into the painting a little bit better than a square one does. So I do both, and that's the whole thing, is doing all kinds of different sizes. But this is a nice size for today's homes and stuff. It's a smaller, it's not overwhelmingly big. Back over my shoulder there, you can just see the corner of one that I'm working on for the gallery. I'm going to start it on this next week after my Western day. But I'm going to start it next week. That one over there is a bigger one. That one's 42 inches by 24 inches. So it's a larger one. It is still what I call a 1080p painting landscape, but 42 inches wide by 24 inches high. Those are made basically to sit over your sofa in your house. It's a big one. Most of your sofas are 6 feet. So, 42 inches works great over them, but all kinds of different kinds of formats. And they experiment with formats. Now, for today's photo reference that I bought this from Adobe Stock Photos. And you can see just how much the photographer put it into landscape. Now, there's artists that would paint this entire thing with this. Now, this is becoming really popular with the really widescreen, ultra widescreen here. It is a very nice place. This is Bandon. This is actually a photo of Bandon, Oregon. I lived just south of here for 20 years of this area. There's a lot of things I like about the photo. There's a lot of things I don't like about the photo. And you know me, if you've watched all the other landscapes, I'm going to change it. I love photos for inspiration. I don't always think they make great paintings because I learned so much of the Dutch and studied so many of the masters for so many years. and studied over in Europe, and they do things a little bit different, which has kind of really influenced me a lot. You can take something like this and use most of the lines, but I like to establish that visual journey into the painting. If I'm not going to have any kind of action or something like that, that visual journey is really important. So I took this photo. I bought this photo from Adobe Stock, and then I took it into Photoshop. And notice the difference again. I've told you that before. How Photoshop prints it out, and then how this is printed out of Windows 10. Quite a bit of difference. So, when you're printing photos, make sure you check your settings and stuff, because there'll be quite a bit of difference. And what I did was I came in and I cropped it off, so I got rid of this whole part over here. I still keep it pretty much widescreen, and so I cropped that all off. Now, what I'm going to do in the painting, when I did my sketch up here, is I raised up the waterline up here, because I don't want it to be about the sky. So I raised it up. I want it to be about here. I want to pull the viewer into the painting right into here, which means I'm going to put some action of some waves right along here. I don't like, into the photo, these rocks that you see right out through here. Just like we did that one with the sunlight into the back coming through the trees. Rocks and stuff like that are really interesting, but they stop your visual journey. And there was a really nice set of clouds back here along the horizon line that I really want to do something with. And so I thought, well, I'm going to open up my journey here and go this way. And so I took out the rocks. Now, you can go back in, put some smaller in. You can add them in there. But just understand, visually, that stops you. See, when you look at this now, you go all the way through. You put those rocks and stuff in there, and your eye stops at those rocks. See? So let's do it up here underneath the monitor. So your eye stops at those particular rocks. All different kinds of philosophies, different ways to do it. That's called art. Everybody has a different opinion as to, and a different purpose for doing it. I go through a very logical, analytical one. And I paint for what my customers like, and I know that a lot of my customers like any type of visual journey that draws you into the painting. They'll take that, okay? So they buy that. Now, one of the things that I lived on the coast for most of my youth of my life, 20 years, like I say, just south of this place. And I always loved going down to the beach. Every day I went down to the beach. And one of the most magnificent things was always walking through the sand dunes and seeing the water for the very first time. That always was a great inspiration for me, and always a magical moment. And so what I wanted to do is, I didn't like all this greenery that's all right up here and to the front. And so I'm just going to weed whack that right on down. Just take out that, and I'm going to put in two little sandhill mounds right here, like you're walking right through the sand coming down, and then there's the beach. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, so I'm still using the photos as reference. But, you know me, I like to change things up a bit. Okay, so I'm going to set that there and use that as reference. I have it on my big monitor here that I've told you before. I like my big monitor. I prefer that for, what it is I'm going to paint. So I did a sketch of it, and, I normally, you've seen me use my little one here for doing things, but today it's a little short, so I have a bigger one here too. I have a bigger one that I helped square up with. So I used the square here, and I drew on the horizon line right there, and just put that on, no problem. And then, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. Now, there's a lot of artists that will use like blue tape, that will put blue tape right across the edge of the horizon line and start their painting that way. I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. If you're going to do that, just make sure that you don't leave that little tape ridge that's there. And sometimes, I've done it a few times, and then I've left a little tape ridge there. And if you're not careful, you don't have that, and you varnish, varnish can pull on it, and it can really accentuate your horizon line maybe a little more than what you planned. So you just have to use a little bit of caution that you don't get it too perfect, too precise. Depends on how much action you have up in here too. If you go study a lot of seascape painters, like one of the master, William Truss Richards, and I've recreated several of his paintings. He would always pretty much blur, in about 90% of his paintings, he would blur the horizon line to get a better depth to it. Because when you make a perfect horizon line, you're bringing the viewer forward here. Now, it's crystal clear in our photo here today because it's a crystal clear day. You're the artist. You have to determine, are you going to make it crystal clear or are you going to blur? If you use that tape and if you make any kind of ridge, it becomes very difficult to adjust it later on, if that makes sense. So I use my ruler, and I'll show you that in just a minute, okay? Standard palette that we used here before, the Hansa yellow, Indian yellow, yellow oxide, naphtha red light, burnt umber, burnt sienna, phthalo green blue. This will make the most magnificent water for us today. Phthalo green blue, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, black and white. I have a little cap of extender out here just in case. And I'm going to be using a couple of bigger brushes too. This is our 2-inch wide handheld one. I usually use it for varnishing and stuff, but I use it on big paintings and stuff as well. And okay, let's make a plan. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and set my sky. My sky is lighter than my water. So if I'm planning on, correcting that horizon line, it's easier to correct it with dark than it is to correct it with light. Now, there's a lot of artists that will disagree with that. That's just something I want you to do. But for the way I paint, I like to put the light down, then the dark back up on top of it, because the dark corrects the horizon line, paints out the light really quickly, because the dark is more opaque, more covering. The white, you'll still get a shadow on it, and you might have underneath, if you put the water on, then put the sky and try to straighten it out, the sky will get a shadow of the dark underneath it, and you might have to repeat it 2-3 times. That's not a bad thing. It's just part of the things that I think about when I'm painting, okay? And you're the individual artist. You got to figure out what works for you. I'm going to take some water here. I'm going to go heavier with the phthalo blue, but I'm going to use ultramarine blue and phthalo blue together here first to set up the sky. And the sky overall, first, I'm going to have, I pre-checked some of my values in there. Most of it is going to be down there around a 7 or so. So I look at my values of my 7. I might go just a little bit lighter here. Along the very horizon line, today we're going to have a violet. There's a beautiful violet, but I'm going to first just come in here and bang this right on here, just real quick. I like larger scapes, seascapes, landscapes, to have movement, action, interest in it. And so I do things quite quickly. Now, I like a little misty sometimes in it, so I'm going to pull some white here off to this, and I'm just going to move it through, and I work very fast. Now, I can still see, I don't know if the camera can see it, but I can still see my horizon line there, no problem through that. That's one of the things. Now, that's just a pencil line showing up through. So if I put down dark phthalo, it'll show through several times. That's what I'm talking about. It'll show through several times. Now I'm going to take my nice clean water and totally make that blue here, because there's just a lot of paint in that brush when you rinse it out. So I'm going to rinse that out for a second. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set my horizon line. So I use my 3/4 inch brush here to begin with. And I do like the phthalo. I like the phthalo, some ultramarine blue, and a touch of my phthalo green or phthalo blue-green here. I like that. I'm going to keep this kind of bright because when it dries down, it gets quite a bit darker. So I might want to just lighten this just a bit. So it's 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to grab my thing for my horizon line here, and I'm going to drop it right down to right about where it is there, and I'm going to press down on it here, and I'm just going to run this right through just like that here. Now I can give that a second coat if I want it to be darker, but I don't necessarily need it to be darker right now. Now what I like about this, and let me do something really nice here and clean my tool. I don't always remember to do that. And then I go pick it up again and I get blue all over my hands and everything. But what I like about this too is, see, just the little tiny burbles of stuff that you can get along the way there. See that? That keeps it from being an absolutely taped perfect line. You know, you look at it there, you don't see it, but you know, when you get up close here, you see a little bit more going on. It looks pretty good. It's a nice way. But you have to press down. You press down pretty hard. Just run your brush right around that a couple of times. Make sure your paint is not too wet. If your paint is too wet, it'll seep right up underneath that board because it's just a board that's blocking it off, okay? So if you keep your paint kind of dry and just drag it right along through that, you can put up a nice horizon line pretty darn quick, okay? So let's just continue on. We'll grab some of this color here, a little bit of light. Now we can always make it darker. We'll keep a little bit of light into that here, and let's just leave it a little bit streaky. For right now, I'm going to go right around these rocks and stuff here, and we'll drop some of this right where I think the rocks need to be here. And I'm using a lot of paint here, but I want to sometimes just push and let it just touch into some of that other color. And I'm going to judge that horizon line. So in the photo, it's very, very dark. But if I leave it a little bit lighter like that, now I can go in there and opaque it. But if I leave it a little bit lighter like that, and until I'm further into the painting, you know, I might like that depth, because, you know, those of you who've painted landscapes, seascapes are all the same. As objects leave, as objects go further back, they become more like the sky. So if my water here is becoming more like the sky, I'm going to get better depth in the end of the whole painting anyway. And I keep this dark, this real dark, right up in here, closer to where I want the viewer to go, then I'm in pretty good shape. Now I'm doing just short horizontal pulls here. We'll go right around that little rock I have sketched in there. I went through that rock quite a bit, so we'll be adding that. But, you know, I can come back and put more color right along that edge in there and stuff. But I like, you know, in big scapes like seascapes, landscapes, I like to have some of this variation, you know, showing through. Okay, and sometimes it happens, and that's the thing. Look at that camera there. So that camera's 8 feet away, the one I'm talking to you on. So I have a monitor here that I look at, and you'll see me looking at that because I'm checking the depth perspective of it. And you can see that's pretty good. You know, if I want to blur it out anymore later on, I can do that. But I want to make sure now that this contrast that's here between this is about a 7 and between this, which is right about a 4 or almost a 3, value 3, I have more contrast than that up in the front of my painting. That's going to drive the viewer's eye there. So what I'll probably do, what I usually do when I make a sand dune type of thing here, is I'm going to bring light in from the left, which is the way it is in the photo, and then I'll cast some shadows here. And this is where the sun is going to hit the shadow right up there in the front, and that'll be the darkest and the lightest spot of the painting, and I'll have the most contrast there. That always works for me on this, so hopefully today it'll work as well, okay? All right, so as we come forward here, let's take some of our sky, and we are going to add some lighter water. I want it a little greener. And that's just the way the water was up there. It got very green as it started to come forward. That's why this phthalo green blue is, or blue-green, is just such a perfect color for today's painting. And so we'll grab some of that and we'll push some of this color in. And I'm not going to worry about, you know, blending or anything like that. It's, you know, it's a little bit dry. I'm going to let some of that happen because I'm using good what do they call motion here of the water, the ocean and stuff here. If you wanted to, all you have to do is, I mean, if that bothers you, any kind of line, you get any kind of dragging there, drying, just rinse your brush out, take a little water into it and run right through here like this, and the Heritage will reconstitute and you can blend the heck out of it, okay? Don't do that. We're not going to be blenders today. We want this. We're going to put wave lines in there and all that kind of stuff. We want these changes in the color because that puts action into the water. Don't blend, okay? Because that does not give you good action to your water. Unblended colors, movement like this and streaks, see, that gives you action into the water. Blending does not. See how smooth that looks? That gives you a little bit more action to the water. And if you're painting, you know, a seascape that is really pretty calm like this one is, you're going to want to have some action in there anyway, okay? All right, so let's take this. Let's just take this up a little higher here. Not take it all out. Let's just keep it up there for just a moment, okay? And we'll go into our beach. Now, you have wet sand and dry sand. The wet sand I love to make with any kind of burnt sienna, any kind of yellow. And, oh, the one color I forgot to put out today. And, you know, I was almost out. Now, you have two of them, actually, that you could use. You have two different types of violets that you could use. You could use the red violet, with this one is almost empty here. That wasn't too smart. See, this one has a little bit more in it. Tell how much I love this. But the red violet, which is part of what we're painting here, works really well. This quinacridone, though, if you've never painted with that, this makes absolutely gorgeous sand color. I'm just going to put a little bit out. I know we're supposed to use mostly red violet in these paintings. I'll just put a little bit out to show you here. But it makes wet sand. Wet sand heads to the, really to kind of the violets and peachy colors and violets. And yellow oxide and the quinacridone make the very best wet sand colors in a painting. So they're perfect. See, you push that right into the water line there, and you get these beautiful colors. So that's what. But you can do it with red violet also. You have to lighten it up and maybe brighten some of it up. Maybe a little bit of Indian yellow and stuff into that as well. And you'll get pretty close to the same color. Now I'm going to take this for my first go around. We could even add a little extender if you want. We're not blending though. I just like how it slides. That's all the reason why I want it. So I took a little Indian yellow oxide, touch of red violet, and some white here. Now I'm going to add a bit of my blue into this. Now what you got to remember is, see, when you're coming right into here, you're going to be looking at through the water and seeing the sand. So you're going to put both those colors together right in here. You're going to make a tone and put both of those together. And that's going to make the water start to look a little bit more transparent, or, you know, see-through right in there. Now we want this to change a bit from time to time, so let's just model in a little yellow oxide and a little white here as well. Just model that all up in here. Toss that in here. That makes it pretty good. But I definitely want to get some of those violets and those blue violets in this right along that water's line, because that gives the depth to it. I mean the transparency to it right there. So that's going to look pretty good. We'll switch it over more to a red violet and a blue violet also, but this starts it out here. Now let's go a little bit more violet here, and you can kind of see that here into the photos there. You'll start to see some of those violets right up in there. See, right along the line. Now, this is where the water's really thin and it reflects the sky. That's going to make a whole other color right in there. You can really see it like right in here on this photo. It really reflects the sky right there. But see that darker violet that's right in there. And that's really your water plus some of your sand colors, because it's wet sand. That's what it is. So that's what you're emulating, is wet sand, okay? Now, there's a couple of ways in which, so we've set this up, and you can smear that through everything. Don't go in there and blend anything, because all of that's going to cover up, okay? We're blocking in, right? We're blocking in. All right. So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. My favorite way is to get in here with my scraper, get into some of these colors, grab all of this, start moving this together, lightening it with some blues and some a little bit of my yellow oxide. Model this through a bit, and I like to come in here, especially since this is the front of my painting, and I like to lay on some color here. This is the front of my painting, so I want to like quickly get this in with lots of paint. This is, and see, I get a little bit of what I call, movement of the color. I like to call it color modulation here coming in. We'll just add a little bit more colors and stuff there. A little bit more of these blues and stuff right up here. Just grab some of that, drop it right up over here. Drop some of that into this sand here as well. Move it all different kinds of ways. Let what happens happen, because all of this is going to cover up. This is just blocking in, and you could say, okay, well, maybe I've got a little too much blue or something in there. I'll change it with my next look. But you're getting a good mottled base coat down. That's really what you're trying to do here. And this is really the way I wish I loved to paint here. And if you make a mistake or something, you can always scrape back, pick something up, or lay it back down again. You'll get a slightly different color movement. I do that all the time. We can come right along the edge of the water there and scrape just like that along the edge of the water to, incorporate those colors a little better, okay? If you wanted to do, but that puts your first movement. Now, I'll put that dune in there in just a little bit here. Let's wipe that tool here for a minute because we're not done with that. Put that away. And let's come back in and let's grab our yellow, a little bit of our red violet here, maybe a touch of our blues here. Nice pretty colors. We'll lighten up just a bit here. Boom, just a bit more. Maybe go just a bit more to the violet side here. We'll go I keep wanting to touch that quinacridone because I really do love that color. Let's put some of this in right here, and let's just come right along that edge there again. Now you'll see a lot of color. Now this front's going to stay wet here for a second, so you can just take, after you run out of color on your brush, just take that and move that through a bit here, like this, through this, and that'll put some other color, that violet, through there. When you no longer see that violet coming out like that, go wipe your brush because you got a lot of yellow in it. Pick up some more of your violet. Come back along the water's line and back forward again. Maybe a little bit back into here. If it starts to drag too much, if it's really wet, you could use extender, or like I do, just pick up a little bit of water, go through. I want to leave some movement. I don't want to do it so much that I don't have that movement in there. See that movement in there? So I want to leave that. So don't do it too much. Don't look for a blend. Look for a modeling, a movement of the colors here. Let's take some of that. Move some of that forward here. So where I put this color on real thick with that scraper, it stays wet for a while, see? And so that blocks that all in. So what you have there now, in just a few minutes, you have the look of your beach. Does that make sense? And of course we have a lot more to do to it, but you have the main look of your beach, okay? So let's do that. Now let's just take this, let's go with some red and blue here. That makes great colors of rocks, browns, maybe a little burnt umber, a little burnt sienna into that. Model this all together for some of these great colors here for some of these rocks that will sit out here. We'll add lights. I'm just adding a medium tone here and widening it out. Try to hit the shape a little bit there of that rock we wanted to have. I want to close off this edge of the painting with a rock. Comes down at this angle, so my brush will work that angle. Maybe a different one out in the water a bit there. Pull down. I think that's the only one I'll put on that side. Let's come over here to the other side. There's a couple of rocks, and in the photo they're actually taller. I kind of dropped them down a bit. I'm going to not put them on the same line. Drop one a little lower here. Maybe a bit of one right out here, something like that. Now see, that those rocks don't interfere with you going that way into the painting, which is kind of what I was thinking, what I really wanted to do, okay? So all of those, actually, all those colors that are all right there, those will make, these are all colors of your painting. Let's just take it off the knife there just a bit, the scraper, and they'll make great paintings into your clouds back here as well. Perfect grays. See, and you can go a little more violets into those. But those are beautiful colors that will come back in here, and we're going to set some of our clouds. Now, I'm going to set some clouds and some of the shadows here for the clouds, and I'd set another one like right up over here, something right along the horizon line. I want to pull the viewer this way, so I'm going to put a bigger cloud right there. Now, the other thing that I want to do here before I get too far here, Dave, is I want to put some more violet along that horizon line. So I'm going to take some blue, just a little bit of that phthalo, some beautiful red violet, and then we'll lighten this up. Probably, I mean, pretty light. Probably get up towards your 9. Pretty light here, because it'll dry a little darker, and we want it light. So we want to come right along. Now, I don't need to get rid of all that. I don't need to be too perfect here. Just drop some of that along and go up just a bit there. That's going to get some of that beautiful color here. And so, I mean, you could do this, you know, with the edge and stuff like that. But I like a little bit of inconsistencies of the color, and just drag your finger along the edge a little bit. It still leaves a nice horizon line there. See, a nice, beautiful horizon line, but it puts some of these other colors in there, and so you get a little bit more variation in there. That's pretty good. We'll go up just a bit. And let's just streak some of that up just a little bit. Maybe a touch or two of more violet, cleaner violet. So come over here. If you want your painting a little brighter, more of a cleaner violet, step away from that rock color over here. And some nice clean light color. You can see the difference. This is just a little bit brighter in color. So we want about the same value, but a little bit brighter. And putting especially as you get distance into the painting, putting multiple tones like this on is really nice to do. So a little bit of that. That's an unmixed, or a little bit of my brush that is not mixed up enough. So I'm just going to add a little water to thin it, mix it up a little bit more, and get rid of that. But I'm going to leave just a bit of that, little bit more of that violet in just a few areas there. And I might even take some of that violet right down into the front here, so then it travels forward here. That's a beautiful color. And I just run it right along, just real light here, just kind of drag it right along into there, so that color is repeating right along there. That works pretty nice. And maybe just a touch lighter here, maybe just a bit of blue, slightly different. It all depends, you know. Sometimes I paint horizons, I mean sunsets and stuff, and where I really put a lot of, I don't want to go that low, I really put a lot of work into the actual horizon line. And this one, I just want to get some of these different colors right up through here. That'll just be kind of pretty here, and which is what you see, just because we have such a depth to the painting there. Now, let's restate some of those grays right in through there. Maybe a bit more blue into those here. Some of those grays get a bit more blue. Let's just drag those around there for a minute. And sometimes if I want to, so I'll put them on there like that. Pretty heavy, you know, and I'll just grab a wet brush and come back through and soften out just like this to soften out that line, soften out those shadows. And we'll build some clouds there in just a second as this dries up a bit. I'll show you some clouds, and we'll push right along that edge there, so that'll work. There's all different kinds of ways, but we might tap in a bit more down lower here. We'll probably come back and revisit the light color on the horizon line. As soon as we do the water, I usually like to take it back to the horizon line there as well. We'll give that just a second to kind of dry up a bit here, so I can start laying in white. The thing is that gray is really wet. And if it's really wet and you go lay in white, the white's just going to disappear. Does that make sense? Has that ever happened to you? And so with acrylics, what I like to do is let it tack up just a little bit. And that was a frustrating part about me when I painted in oils. I mean, they'd put it on and it would be gone. So I let it tack up just a bit, and it's almost there. And then I can lay that white on and then slowly work the white into that gray, because the gray doesn't move as fast as the white does, because the white is coming on now. And we can put a little bit of this blue and stuff into the white here. But see, now the white lays on, and I can touch it and touch it and touch it and not hurt it at all anywhere in there. Let's push a little bit back here. Okay, so there's will be that other little cloud, maybe something right here that's just going to go right along that edge. Now, if I want to soften it, what I do is just rinse my brush real quick, take some water in it right here and soften through and push that. I can push the edge. Remember, water is your solvent. So I can come back through here, soften any of that back up. Anywhere I touch my brush here like this, I can push the cloud around with my finger if I want it a little softer. Want that lighter, softer look to the cloud there, I can push that around. Okay. Right over here, I'll put a little water right in there. I'll just use my thumb and push that around a little bit. Make those intermediate values in between those that gray and that white to make that soft color. I want to build a little bit more light right up here, so I'll build a little bit more of a powerful cloud, maybe right there, here, coming out, down. My 3/4 inch brush is a little big to be making a smaller cloud, but that's okay. So we'll do that, and let's build this just a bit more here. Maybe that one right in there, and push that line a bit. Here, sometimes when I get done here, I'll paint back through those with some blue and stuff like that as well. But they can go a little bit lighter. They can go a little bit more. I like to just strike, push that in, strike some color. There. You can rinse your brush a bit. Take out the water, pinch wipe it, take out the water here, and just pull through it real quick. Here, just lightly like that. Leave some of that nice movement. We're not sure yet exactly what we want to do with these clouds, so leave some of that movement. So don't hit it too many times. Just soften that out. Let's put a few more little marks right along in here, so a little bit more of that cloud movement. Now I may take those down in size, you know, because they are a little bit aggressive as far as the size. So, and I back paint. Oh shoot, that's actually half the technique that I use when I do paint skies and stuff and clouds. Is I back paint the clouds down into position that I want them. So I want this top of blue a little darker anyway, just a touch maybe. So we'll add till we get around the value 7 or so, pretty close to what we were there before, and I'll back paint down into these clouds, take away just a bit, and you can see I can soften the edges, soften things back out, and just run it right along those clouds, and I'm watching just how soft I'm making them, just back painting back through that. Now see, the blue is more powerful than the light. Let's leave that just a touch there. And I'm just watching it. And sometimes, you know, in a painting, I'll do this 3 or 4 times. Put the clouds back on, soften them back out, back paint back down through them till I finally get the cloud look that I want to have along that horizon back there. And sometimes it takes you 3 or 4 times until you kind of figure that out, you know. I mean, especially if you're altering a photo and you're not, you know, you're not emulating it exactly, you're creating your own kind of look, you don't really know. Now you look back at that camera there, that's not too bad. It's a little spot there, but you know, any kind of movement in here would take care of that. Any kind of just small horizontal movement right here will take care of that. Bridge between the 2 marks, maybe a little bit going out that way there. You can see this could have maybe a bit more of that cloud back right through there like that, and so that puts it on kind of soft. And again, you know, you might make it. Now there's times where I go in there and I make clouds with palette knives. I go in there and make clouds with small brushes, bristle brushes. Sometimes I make them just a big, powerful, you know, strike of movement. If I have a smaller brush, I'll go in and just make a big, powerful strike of movement right in there like that. Flatten out the cloud as it goes along the horizon line a bit. And, you know, those are interesting types of movements there like that as well. You know, pushing something in here. Don't try to emulate everything that you'll see in a photograph, because that photograph is not going to make a great painting, because, you know, I mean, that photographer could have a setup of a really great depth of field, and so you see a lot of color modulation into that cloud that won't work with your painting if you want to paint something for depth. So, you know, there's that to consider. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go back into some of our light colors, our light greens. I'm going to add a little bit of extender and stuff to this here, so it stays wet for just a few minutes here. And let's just go lightly thin. So thin it out. Thin this out just a bit right back there. And then I'll add some yellows and a little violets here into some of that. So you see a bit more of that color coming through there, like that. Just a bit of extender. I like that because I'm sliding a long ways now. I'm not doing it to blend, I'm doing it to slide the color here. Okay. That's pretty colors going in there. So you see a lot of, and the camera can't always pick up all the colors that you see. As a matter of fact, as you get back to that one, the colors narrow back down again. You know, you don't see quite as many beautiful colors. I want to, before I go too much further, I want to go in and deepen some of those back colors though. Phthalo blue and phthalo blue-green here. And let's go back in and deepen some of these back colors. That's going to push a lot more contrast through our painting here. And I like that. I'm going to leave it just a touch lighter along that horizon line. So while that's wet there, now you can take extender or you can take water and just run right through it a bit here. And so I put the color on kind of thick and then just run my brush through it here. Sometimes short, choppy motion if I want to add a lot of movement to the water. Sometimes shorter, choppy motions like that. Get some nice darks in here. And it'll pick up some of that other color that we have. We'll get a bit more movement. So see my short movements that I'm doing here, especially as I'm coming up towards my front part of my scene, towards my interest. You're the artist. You get interest with your brush, right? So we want to keep our brush moving small, all kinds of smaller movements up here. That's going to create the action. Back in the back, we can do a little longer, a little smoother, not quite as much stuff going on, and that works a little bit better. Now you look at that, see that dark just really added a lot more contrast into the painting there. So that looks pretty good there. Now let's go in and let's just add, let's push some of this out of the way, some of the blue-green here for just a second. Clean the area there for a second so we can get some more violets back up in here. Different kind of violets. Blues with your red violet and your whites here. A little bit more into the violet right into here. That's pretty colors. I'm going to put a strike like that on, grab some water in my brush here and just work that through here for a second. A little bit more color coming through. That's kind of pretty. Get a little more of that lighter blue-green and that violet together here, right into that area. That's a pretty color. Let some of it slide right back there towards the rocks. Okay. Some of that slide right back there. That's good. Yeah, that's good, right in there. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking for variations. Like I might just come back here and restate some yellows. In a big painting, I will do this a lot. Now, that mixed up with just a bit of my blue in the brush and created that green. And so I'm just going to come back over here towards some of that cloud color and push some of that in. See, the clouds carry through all the way back here to the front. Well, when the water gets thin, here's what happens. When the water gets thin and you're at a certain angle, the water is like a mirror. It reflects everything. Now, we painted the canyon right down to Colorado, and the water was like a mirror, almost reflecting everything. So pulling these colors down to here is going to make the water thinner. Does that make sense? So, yeah, you're going to want to grab some of these cloud colors right here. But you don't want to lose all your sand and some of that other color. And water's got, have highs and lows. And so you don't want to lose all of that. And you want to stir it up a bit here and there too. Mix, modulate your brush. Move it around here so that you're picking some of that up. So you're going to get some of that different movement there. But let me show you here. You could very easily use the scraper. I like the scraper, but let me show you this. If I wanted to create a water line, it's just that easy, right like that. Now I don't want to make it that smooth, but you can create a water line. Now look at that water line on that camera there. That looks pretty good for that water line. And what you've got to do is then add some movement to that water line. Now remember the last one. Let's take some phthalo green blue and a little bit of red violet and a little bit of our blue here. A little bit of all this together. Remember in the last video on the river, we talked about coming in and painting out. And that's what I do with the water line here too, is I'll come in and I'll paint out stuff that I don't need and push forward. So, that creates that nice little edge. It creates movement. So, we put on the white bubbly water and then we paint through, right? That's basically the same thing here. But I use a little smaller brush than my 3/4 inch here. And it all depends on how much, interest and stuff like that I want, to have here. And I try to vary the water line. Now, this is going to be the beautiful thing about this water lines and the wave line action that we're going to put on here. We're going to do it a lot so that we get a lot of nice interest in here. And we can use the knife. We can grab some of this nice cloud color here. Put a little extender in it. It'll stay for a while on your palette, or you mix it back up. But you just don't want to use pure white. We want to use some of the sky color reflecting into this, and sand color also. We can add other colors later, but we're going to just pick up some white and some of this color. Let's come right back through here and push that right in like that. Okay, now the thing is, I don't like to do it too many times because then I'll start to blend some of it together and I'll lose some of the action of the water. And if I want to soften the water, what I do is I'll use a little extender in my brush, just a little bit of my other colors like cloud colors and sand colors, a little sand color in there, cloud colors, just a little dirty color here, grayed color, violets, that. And I'll paint out. Remember, just like what we did with the water, the other water, I'll push forward. Sometimes I'll push the direction of the wave into that, right like that. And I'll paint out what it is that I don't want. And by slowly adding like this, slowly adding through, I like that little bit of yellow warmth in there as well. I can, I can put waves on also with my brush, but I like to use the power of the knife up in my front center of interest here. I like to do that. So you can see that wave being built there. Do you see that? Okay. And so when I come up towards the rocks and stuff, and then when I'm, as I get back to darker colors, I'm going to use darker colors to paint out. Does that make sense? So I'm going to come up here, right up here. There'll be a nice little wave kind of hitting the edge of the rocks there. Let's put a little more, just a touch of white into that as well. Okay, and maybe right along the edge of the water here, there'll be, and so sometimes I just slide that along and I'll take out, sliding it along, what it does is, well, let me put it this way. I'm a very left, logical, analytical painter, okay? So if I'm not careful, I will line up these little waves, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, stair step them perfectly. So when I push that knife flat and I slide it and I let what happens, it breaks my left brain and I don't make them all really super even. That's why it's good for me. That's why this way works really well for me. So I'm going to put a little bit darker color of some of the color I have in that area and just work through that wave a bit, taking just a bit of it out and leaving just a few little areas, maybe a few little splashes and stuff that I can take out further with a little more dark if I want. This is a little number 8 flat. Works perfect for running right along the waves. Now, sometimes I'll put the shadow back behind the wave. Sometimes I'll put the shadow up in front of a wave in a curl or something like that, if it's curling. Sometimes I pull back like this as the wave. What happens as the wave is getting ready to go, it draws water up. And so sometimes I'll pull up like that, you know, drawing water up to cause it. But this is, I'm going to keep it mostly calm today, so I'll flatten most of that out here. We'll leave just a bit of that here. That makes it kind of fun right in there, so you can see some different kinds of waves there. And we could use that. Now I also use my scraper, and the scraper, you know, the scraper does a different kind of wave, because the scraper wave you can put on like this. You can just drag it around like that and set on waves and sets and stuff like that way. And that works really nice because they're inconsistent. Does that make sense? That's what you want to have. They're inconsistent. So I'll take some dark and I'll just take out a little bit here and there on those, leaving some of those lights. Take out some of that dark and add some of that other movement in there like that. Works pretty well. And of course a bigger painting, and this is the reality of it, a bigger painting I put a lot of work into. I do it multiple times and you repeat and repeat. You know, you may put a wave on like this, and you know, you may add a breaking point, you know, into the wave, and a back and a front to the wave. There's a lot more that you would add into it. But a smaller little painting like this, just this simple little wave. Let's go to some cloud color here. Right up underneath, that would be pretty. Just pick up some of those colors, let some of that happen. And the biggest thing is, if you can be a little bit, let's say, if you can be a little bit casual and imprecise, not perfect with it, that's when it's going to look the best. You know, and you as the artist, you will always see something like, oh, maybe that doesn't look too much like a wave. Oh, other people looking at it are going to say, wow, that's a beautiful wave. You as the artist will always see the problems in it. No one else does. So you got to learn to let that go. Just let it go. That's just the nature of painting. I'm going to put a little burnt sienna in that sand color. I like that, with just a bit of that burnt sienna into that. Little bit of that sand color happening back there. It's kind of nice. See? And see, you can adjust and work these waves, all different kinds. So I can take a little bit of that violet out, put some of that sand color in there like that. That works pretty nice. Put some of that sand color back up in through here. That works pretty nice. Now I got my water line coming up a little farther than I was kind of anticipating. So, I mean, that's an easy thing. I just might walk it back. I'll just show you how you can change stuff really easy. But let's take some of this. Nice mottled up. You can see on the knife it's mottled up. It's got a little blues. It's got a little extra color in there. Let's pull some of this around right back here. See, I don't need it to blend. I want this color to lay on because I can take care of that softening bit of it because I'm a tone painter. I'm not a blender. So I like to drag it like this, sometimes push and drag like that, and that's where you get all that bubbly water, you know, that just looks amazing. You can put some of that bubbly, let it run out on your brush a bit, I mean on your knife, and just drag it, and you'll get all this bubbly water here, like that. That just looks pretty neat. Here, let it just run out and get, right now the paint's getting just a bit sticky and stuff here, which is great. There. Okay. Now, back here, I decided, okay, how much do I want to leave, of that white? I'm going to go to a darker color because I have dark back there, right? And take out some. Let some of it mix just a little bit to create that intermediate kind of lighter value that happens right around the wave there. I'll rinse some of that out there just a bit. If I pick up too much white, I like to rinse and reset my brush and do it again here. Because I don't like to, I'm lifting off, so I'll wipe my brush on my paper towel and lift off a bit, so it all depends. Now, if I put a shadow under the wave here, I start to raise it up. The wave starts to get higher and higher, and I can put movement and draw movements. I can pull forward slightly like that to push some movement coming forward towards the beach. This is some of the things that artists look like when they, when you go to the beach, of looking at how the water's drawing, how it is drawing out and coming back in, and what kind of movement is it setting there for that particular part there. So put a little bit of that there and just go through that and get a bit of movement there, and a little darker there, here like that. There we go. Bit of that coming around. Now I'll take a bit of dark and let's just take out, these two waves are kind of colliding, so I'll just put a little separation in between them there like that. A little bit of water, lighter water around the rocks. There'll be lighter water around the rocks, generally, not always. Depends on the depth of the water, because the water's churning around there a little bit, so you will get some. Now, you can also do some of this with the flat of your brush. Remember, we've done some of that before. Okay, so you could use the flat of your brush. The nice thing is, use a bunch of different tools to do some things here. And before I get too wild and crazy there, I get so excited about this making water, I forget. You should paint the rocks before you do too much on the water, because then then you'll have to just redo the water again, which doesn't hurt. It always adds. Usually when I do a big one, like when I'm going to go do Balsa Point over there, that real big one that I'm going to be working on for the gallery, I will do the water rocks several times back and forth, and so they'll get it'll get a lot more interest that way. You can, as it goes further back, you can also darken down, set the water down just a little bit, gray it down just a bit so it's not quite so white. Remember, you can gray some of those colors down, get those cloud colors on and stuff like that. So if you, I want to put some lighter water right around this bigger rock out here, but I don't want it to dominate my painting too much, so I'll put that on. Now I'm going to take it off. So like I always tell you so many times, I paint too much. I always paint too much. I always know I do. And then I take out what it is I don't like or don't need, tapping the brush, doing some stuff, and pushing the water into where I want it. I always have my paper towel here in my hand, wiping my brush in between here. Put on some more dark here, take out a bit here. Let's just run that right around, tap that around a bit. So we'll fix some of this water right up in here. Sometimes if I want to make it more churning, I'll push up a bit like that. Sometimes if I want to flatten it out, I'll use my finger. There's all kinds of different ways that you can create these lovely movements here. A little darker, set that nice dark shadow right up against the edge of that water there. So we get a little bit of the spray. So see, it for me, and there's other artists that will disagree, I put on too much and I paint, because the darks take out the lights so easy. I take out what it is I don't want with some of my dark, and that always works. I'll leave a little churning water right there like that. So that always works for me. Now along this, I want to have some more light right out here, right out in this area. I'm going to put that on before I do that rock, because I want this rock to kind of cover that movement of that water right in there. So I want some water movement there. I'm going to increase the water movement in here into this area. That'll draw that viewer's eye a bit more, you know. And some people right now are going, oh, you just ruined it. No, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's only paint. It's only paint. We can fix it. It's only paint. So let's just push some of that in. Tap through that a little bit. Create some of that churning here. Through that. Okay. But I got to admit, you know, the first time I started doing this, I was scared to death that I did make a mistake. And, you know, but I do a lot of this stuff and try. I mean, it's just, like I say, it's just a little bit of paint and a board. Give it a try. Work through it. See if you can, you know, get some different looks and stuff. But see, painting through like that, I mean, it's kind of fun. You're kind of setting up, drawing, splash the waves around a little bit there. And the more you draw over it, the softer those waves become there. You know, of course, you're going to want to have some white up on the top there, you know, hitting some areas there like it's curving and stuff. And you can put curls. You can, you know, you can work backward, pushing back up like this to curve the wave, to curl the wave. And, you know, I have all kinds of big seascapes that I do that I'll curl the wave. But like I said before, I don't want to curl these waves today too much. You know, not too much, maybe just a little bit. And you can just drop a little bit of light right along the edge of that curl there, right like that. It's kind of fun. Let's just put a bit of this light out here, a bit more of this splashing out here, right like that. There you see some of that nice movement. I want some more light out there, though. I want some more light. So let's just drag some of that. This little fusions, see, they work so nice for dragging right along. After you get some of those intermediate, some of these colors kind of working together, kind of doing what I call incorporating together, kind of not blending. See, but they're incorporating their movements together. Once that starts to happen, you can start to use your little fusion, and it works really well. And you can set up different waves, like I can set up a wave here and push it back a bit more and take some of my cloud color coming up towards the front light. Take some of my cloud color and push some of that out right there. Push some of that out. We'll add some more lights right along that water there in just a little bit. But you start to see, now step back and look at it from there. Up close you go, oh my gosh, he needs to blend that. But back there, you know, when you're doing optical, that doesn't look so bad back there, you know. Then question is going to become, you know, how much do you want to put a few little marks back here? You know, a few little wave marks back there. You don't want to make it like it's a storm at sea. So again, I put on too much, right? Put on too much. Rinse that color out of your brush. Pinch wipe it. Pick up some blue-green here. Vary the color a bit and take it back out. Only leave a few little marks of the color or color changes there to start creating that nice movement. Let's just leave a little bit. And this is the nice thing, you know, when you get brave enough, and it does take a little bit of confidence, you know, get rid of the fear of making a mistake, because it's just a board and paint, right? And everyone's going to do it a little different. Now, see, from back, that looks really great. And I used to always joke with my students, if it doesn't look great at 8 feet, go back 10 feet. Go back 20 feet. Keep going back until it looks great. But you'll find it, you know, and you can, let's push back in a little bit of dark. Just happening every once in a while back through here. Here, like that. That's just all good ocean movement there, see? I can push. I do like on that photo right there, there's a nice big dark area right up here in the front. So I can push some of that movement right back into there. Let it come right up against that wave there and just add that in. That looks kind of nice right before it goes back into this you know, lighter area back in there. They're fun. They're really a lot of fun. Let's take some brown, some burnt sienna, some of our blues here. Let's get over here. Let's add some yellow oxide over to this side. A little bit of that red. We'll make a lighter kind of a tan color here. Don't mix it up too much, okay? And let's start some of the... Now you saw me doing the river there in all different kinds of ways to do rocks here. Now we're going to be looking mostly at the shadow side on this one, so we'll push some of the... right now I'm just breaking the color, just breaking the edge of the color here. Right along like that, okay? And then we'll do more fun things, more colors. You know, if it's a gallery painting, man, I paint it, like I say, I paint these rocks so many times, back and forth with different colors and give them their own personality kind of thing. I guess because these are, especially in this area, these guys are kind of, you know, they're forcing you to view in through the center. So they're right through here, so they want to force you in here. So we do want to make them look kind of nice because they're controlling the way in which you're looking in this painting. So we want to have a certain amount of interest to them, a light to dark side. So nice warm and cool side here, some different like movements to them, right like that. And boom, put on some textures. Get some stuff going into those rocks there. Let's get a darker, cooler side. Let's take a little burnt umber, maybe a touch of black and some red, violet, a little bit of blue. And let's get a nice darker shadow side here. Running on these, run through. You can, so there's all kinds of ways. You see me paint different kinds of ways with these rocks. But again, I won't put as much into this painting as I do into a big gallery painting, you know, and this, but you can still, you know, just have a lot of fun. This is, you know, this size of board like this, I wouldn't mind at all taking out plein air painting. It's a nice board. See, that starts to get a nice look. It's a nice board, a nice size of a board. Let's get a little violet, black, and reds. Some different little blues, all different kinds of colors. But break them up into your warms and cools. Let's just go over this edge of this just a bit, because that's going to be mostly the shadow side there. So we'll cool off some of this light color to a medium tone here. Drag some of that over that. There, like that. Leave some of those darker shadows right up against the edge of that water. A few longer strokes, shorter strokes, you know, vary them. But it's fun, and it's fun to try something like this, you know. I mean, it's just fun. Put a little bit of light maybe hitting here, right on the top of that, hitting an edge or something, a little fractured edge of the rock or something there. Let's get a little bit more light, and let's just drag a light struck plane on this, that zoom right like that. That's kind of nice. Use the corners of the brush. I like to do that with the little fusion. Use the corners and tap it around a bit. Soften some of that edge. Soften it with a halftone. So you would have a what we call the light struck plane. A receding plane would come down at this edge slightly darker. So I'll pick up a little darker. The receding plane will pick up down along this edge slightly darker. And then the shadow plane down, pulling down to the bottom there. And yeah, and you can create some pretty neat looking rocks pretty quickly. And then, of course, you know, you take your time and put more into them for more detailed rocks here. But these rocks will do for this type of painting. But see, it's like the light struck plane there. I did it pretty much with just like one tone. You know, and if I was doing a gallery painting, I would do that one tone, break it up like 5 times, you know, so you would have quite a bit more work into it. But, you know, the cost of the painting goes up quite a bit, so it's all worth it. It's time. It's time management for what you are as the artist and how much you're going to do. And all, you know, all really great artists make all different kinds of different, you know, they don't always paint the same. They'll paint some really simplistic and some really detailed, doing it all different because so they hit more, you know, markets. That's how you do it. That's how I've done it for 35 years. So we'll pull some of this in here. And sometimes though, I like my real quick ones better than the ones I work too much on. So there's that too. So you can see that. So that starts to get some of it in there. Now I'm going to want to put maybe a bigger wave here in the front. Now see, this is pretty dry up here in the front, but that doesn't bother me because I'm a tone painter. I'm going to take some of my white. Let's just model this with some of these other colors that are right here. I'm going to put a bigger wave maybe right in here. Just a boom, a more powerful look at one right there. We'll get some textures. I'll pounce the brush here, like the knife like that a bit. So I get some nice textures in there. That's nice visual stuff, right? And now I'll come back. We'll even take some of these sand colors here. Take out just a bit here, like that. Some of these nice sand colors, a little bit of this lighter blue right here. Come right along that edge. Take some out. And I'm controlling now, stepping back, kind of looking at it. I'm controlling the power of this wave right now. What do I want to see in this wave? Let's even use a little ultramarine blue this time. Make more of a lighter blue-violet here. Let's go quite a bit lighter here. Use a nice blue-violet, maybe a touch of that phthalo green into that. That's a pretty color right there. Nice watery color. And we'll take back out this way just a bit with some of that. See, that's a pretty color. And that's the other thing I look at is those colors. You know, I want to look at those colors. I want to see, you know, we're painting this seascape that's going to have all of these kinds of colors here. So let's take that. Some of these colors, greens and the violets, take back out just a bit. And I'm looking for how the wave is working against the other ones there. So I always put in some of these nice horizontal lines. I call them they're linear lines that help you with what's called linear perspective. Linear perspective is very important. If you don't have them, the beach will feel like it's climbing up on you. So you have to have some areas here where the beach with the lines push it back. So the more lines that you push in, the farther that beach gets pushed back. So I do like to have some of that. Let's take some of this right in through here. So you can calm some down, stroke some out there just a bit, get some of that other look to that. Now it's kind of like, do I want to take up, and I got that line just a bit big, so I'm going to push it out right here like that. Separate these two waves just with a little color, just pushing like that. Separate those two a bit so it's not a consistent line. I do have that little bit of that linear problem, you know, as a left brain painter, that I do that. Now see back there, that doesn't look so bad. I like that wave pulling you this way just a bit. Then it pulls into that one, which is kind of nice. Now you can, you know, pull some of these at, like I say, you can pull some of these at an angle, you know, which draws the wave. See, you can put some angles in there to draw the wave. That's up to you. That's your own individual wave motion. And so I put them on and take them off. And after some of these waves get a little bit drier, it's easier to come in and adjust them just a bit after they dry up, because then it doesn't mix quite as much, and you can go in and adjust some of the waves and adjust some of their movements and stuff. And I might put a bit of the light right back behind that one there. Just a bit of movement there, back behind them. Right like that. A little churning, a little bit of movement. There's all kinds of ways. Let's push our wave line back here though. Let's come back here like this and put some more and bring it back at an angle like that. Just maybe a little bit here up into the front there. Okay, and again, you can put color in the brush. You can just use some water and come right along the edge like that to soften that out. Streak it out a little bit, put some of that light color in. You know, there's all different kinds of ways to do, and practice and play them. Take a board and try it. That's the best way. Just take a board and try some of this stuff. It's just a bit of paint and a board, and it's a lot of fun. I love building waves, and just don't always build a storm. You know, a lot of times we'll build a storm because the waves start to become so fun to paint, I forget to stop, you know. And right out here like this, on this area here, I have that rock. And if I really kind of grow the white a bit here, what that does is that shoves that rock a little bit farther forward, pushing the white in between that rock and there. And that really helps you sometimes with visual depth. Another little way, lots of ways. Lots of techniques here. Lots of different lots of different waves. Lots of different ways to do those. Now, I'm not going to make real splashing type waves, I don't think. Just a few coming around there just a bit. So see, the second time that gives even a little bit different interest. And then I'll come back and draw that in a bit more. Got a nice little drip of water there. There like that. So you see that a bit more. Could have, you know, if I really want to drive your interest to this side of the painting, I could have a little bit more of a lighter wave right in here. Let that kind of join up. Let's push that. Oh, that does look pretty good here. And a little bit of dark in my brush. Just to pull. Now I can pull forward like this and put some motion into that wave. Wipe your brush, pull forward, put just a little, because I don't have that much motion. You know, like we did on the river, we pushed and, you know, like water falling over a rock or something like that. You can push the curl or the motion into the water that way as well. And so pushing it that way, which makes the water kind of bubble along the surface, or you can make a more bubbly surface, just tap along the edge there and make a more bubbly front of the wave there too. You can do that, you know, as well. All right, enough of that playing around there. Let's go back in, grab some of this stuff. Might have to put out some more yellow oxide before I get going here. And let's get some of this nice beach color again here, right up with some of these colors. And let's go right back up here with some little bit lighter here. And I'll take my 3/4 inch brush here and just soften that right along the edge there. Just like that. Now, this is where I restate my violets. You know, I'll bring up my violets here. Let's just put violet back over here. You get a nice combination of the colors here. Some violet, some of that yellows in there. That's just pretty colors here. Get those in. I love this quinacridone. I'm just going to add a little bit of that. I just like that violet. And it's going to dry a little darker, so when you put that on there, it should look a little bit lighter. Let's just run that just real quick right along there. I like that. And if I want to, you know, it's hard to leave this type of, that much of it there, but if you just want to run a wet brush right through it, that'll do enough to soften it out for you, hopefully. I mean, start learning to leaving some of that, because, you know, you need to step back. See what it looks like when you're stepping back. And your hand should look like that. But see what it looks like when you're stepping back. That's the visual look that you're going to have in a gallery. That's the visual look that you want when you step back, okay? And up front, it's always going to look a little wow, you know. Now you can put some of this on with the brush here, but I do like what happens when I use my knife and I just apply that paint, and I've got all this stuff going on here. Now I'm going to leave the beach a little darker there because I'm going to, well, just lighten it a little bit with my brush here. Right like that. Okay. And I don't like that line too. I'm going to take a little bit more. Matter of fact, I'm out of yellow oxide, so we'll go give it another squirt here of my yellow oxide. Like that. And I like the yellow oxides and the violets and stuff right up in there. That good variation of some of these tones, that's just going to add just tons of interest to it. But, you know, if you want that true wet waterline, and you'll see some of the seascapes that I do, really, really wet water lines, then you can put those in. But I'm going to take, golly, I should probably, you know, I'm one that you can always put colors back and all that kind of stuff, but never fight your palette for being out of something. So, you know, if I'm fighting something because I'm out, then what that does is that puts this little thing in my mind that I start to thin out the paint. And we're at the point of the painting up here coming up front, and I don't want to thin anything out. I want nice, powerful movements of color, so I don't want to fight I'm running out of color, so I put it out. You can always go put it back in when it's all done. But let's take some of this light, and we're going to make this little sand dune coming out this way. Here, so we're going to pull that down. Here, a little lighter sand dune coming down that way. And we'll have one slightly lighter. This will be, that's actually the shadow side on that one. So this one here, coming up this way, will be the light struck side. Here, so we'll, and you can put the reed grasses in and all that kind of stuff in here too, but I got quite a bit of modulation there of the colors, which I like, but I'd like to see some more yellows and violets in these here, especially since this is the shadow side here. And I don't want to use big, huge sweeping strokes. I want to kind of just drag these like that, see? So I get some interest to that particular slope, you know. And this side could have a little bit more yellow, warmer. It's the light struck side here. So we could put a little more warmer yellow into it here. Like that. Let's set that nice. Well, I guess I better wipe it if I'm going to set it down on my thing there. Okay, so now let's go back in and incorporate it. So what I mean by incorporate, I'm just going to take a larger brush that's kind of wet here and kind of bring some of this together just lightly through here. Leave some of this as like running sand. Up here we'll put a few bushes and stuff like that, but you'll see some of that. I might want to have the burnt sienna and some violet and stuff in it right up here as a nice little, you know, furtherance of a shadow of the beach here. Right up here, run that through just a bit here like that. Burnt sienna, blues, and violets here to get some of these, little bit of these longer shadows and dunes shadows here. Okay, right in there like that. Now, we can take some of those burnt siennas and some greens and stuff here. And this kind of thing that I do takes a while. You can't just do it with once. But if you're going to emulate some bushes and stuff like that, just right along that edge there, it's going to take a few applications of it. And we'll want to get some greens in there as well. Some of these, just model this all up, just touch through a few times. Don't, you know, just when you're doing something like this, don't do it too many times to cover up everything. Leave it very impressionistic. This is what I like, the impressionism of it. You know, I don't want to get in there and make a bunch of reed grasses. That doesn't go with the consistency of what I'm doing with the painting here. If I go smooth everything all out, then yeah, maybe I will go do something like that. But you know, right now I'm not going to do that. And we might have a bit of those right up here, little reed grasses and stuff up onto the edge of the dune there, right on that side. And so I just used the corner of my fusion and some different, the big thing is model your brush, you know, so you don't have a perfect. And then, like I said at the very beginning of this, I'm going to take some of that burnt sienna, the blues, you know, some of your violets. All of this makes just beautiful, especially more towards the burnt sienna violet is really a pretty shadow color here for the painting here on this side. So we'll put on some of these dune shadows. Now that's very wet, so it gets very hard to put on shadows up there. So I'll have to let some of that dry. Okay, which, but I like to pull the shadows down here. And see, this is what I said at the very beginning, is we're going to have these warms and these cools, you know, of the shadows, the lights and the darks of these shadows here. They're going to come up into this area. And this is actually where the biggest contrast is going to be into the painting, actually. We'll push some of those darks up into this area. Just use the corner of your brush. But as the color gets really thick, which is what you need for textures, it gets harder to paint. And so what the beautiful thing is with the acrylics is we can just let it dry for just a bit, and I can push some of those on. And eventually what I'll be doing here is I'll take some of my nice light and come right up against the edge of the shadow and lay on a light textured stroke here that will just encroach a bit on that shadow there. And so I'll put thick paint right up against the edge of that shadow and define some of my shadows, but try not to define them perfectly, you know, define some of the shadows of what that is, and then use that, like we've talked about in some of the others, to help slope your beach, help say the direction. Now the calligraphy of your brush really makes a difference here on the slope of your beach, okay? Really makes a difference here. So I'll push some of this out, and we'll just smooth it out just a bit here. Grab some of that. Boom, just do some of that powerful light right there that's hitting some of that. So you're not going to have shadows on this side here, and the tendency will be to want to smear some of that out, but don't be doing that. We'll want to feel that a little bit of light, like there's a bit of light. I'll let this dry and then come back and work that again, that whole area again, and that'll fix that up. Now there's a couple of areas still that I want to take some of this nice beach color, some of these greens, and I don't always worry about making exactly the same color, a little bit of blue. Remember, when you're making water, it is the beach color, burnt sienna and yellow, and the blue colors and stuff together. And let's just bring some of that in, some of that nice beach right in here. We'll start to thin out our water a bit here. And so if that is a little bit too much the same, I don't have enough, you know, color modulating in there, so I'll take a little more yellow and some burnt sienna, push that in there as well, and take that out. Let's put a bit of that burnt sienna yellow up a little closer to the rock. So I'll paint this a couple times. That's the beautiful part about it. A couple times here. Some of this light. Let's go a little bit of blue into some of that light, and violet here. Makes it kind of pretty. But it gives you a good, you know, good idea about, you know, painting something like this and working it kind of fast. I would definitely put in a little bit more work into this one, just a touch more. But see, a little soft color to get some of that movement over there on that side, but not really aggressive. Maybe a little bit of a wave here in just a second. A little bit more white right on the edge of the brush. Just start out with that chisel and just slowly rock it down until you're making a wave there. Okay, so let's not get it too aggressive. Maybe a little bit of a wave line is all we need right there. And then after you do that, you can take out with a little color, you know, take out what you don't want, slide that right along that edge. The knife just makes amazing ones. You know, I mean, I can just slide that right in there like that, flatten that one out a bit. It just makes a nice, amazing, and then take some of that blue, especially that violet, that nice violet, go right along that edge. Soften it out a bit. Leave a little bit of the bubbly there. You know, you can take some of it out, soften it out, put it on and soften it out. Makes a nice wave. Like that. There we go. Quick little things. Put a little bit of a splashy water there. And put that on, then take a... Now, if you're talking about up against the rock, don't forget you can also take some of that splashy water out with the rock color, because the rock's going to sit below that. So you can take some of that out with rock color as well. So, yeah, there's just all kinds of nice ways to do that. I want to push a little bit more here. As it dries down and stuff, I always watch it. I'm watching the color here and the movement that I want to have. And you know, I do like, I'm getting more where I can leave something like that, but I just use a damp brush and then incorporate it into the painting. But don't take it all out. Our goal is to get more. My goal is to get more impressionistic, where I don't take that out quite as much as I do still today. But, you know, I worry about things being smooth, and because that's where I was taught for a long time. And today, everything that has interest is more granulated, more work. I mean, less smooth, more beautiful movements of color, you know. So put that in together there. Let's just soften that just a bit, leave some of that. Sometimes you can just poke that in there too. Poke in some other little, just poke it around so it's not quite so smooth there with color. And, you know, violet, you can always come back with violet. Now, those clouds and stuff did pretty well. There's some of the blue I would probably work on. I'm going to take a light violet one more time here, up into the very front of my painting, and then maybe into the back of my painting again. So I'm going to take this light violet right up here into the front, drag that right over into some of that water there. That looks kind of nice there. It could be just a hint darker. Just a hint darker right along the edge of the water there. Like that. And see, I used to worry about, oh no, I got that on there. No, I don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just take some water and go through it and just pull it out, see? Take some water into your water. That works. And, yep, and just pull right along the edge there. Makes that nice wet sand here. Vary it. Learn to leave some of that. Dave, don't smooth it all out. I'll get there, but I'm still to that part where it's just hard to do. I always want to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Not that, and you can smooth it all out. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not where I want to go. I want to go more impressionistic and see if I can get myself to be a little bit more quick and easy with it. So I'm going to fix up that area. You can see that in the final photo, but I do want to take a little bit of this violet here and a little bit more of this violet, lighter, right along my horizon line, and then soften up into the sky one more time. Push that back here. Yeah, that's a good color. Right along that horizon line there, and right up into my sky just a bit, a little bit of clouds, a little bit of that, right up into that. That works. You can just see those clouds. I'll probably put just a touch more into them. Let's go just, and let's quit fighting this. Let's just get ourselves a nice clean area here to go a little bit more blue. Here, lighter blue. Here, mix that up pretty well, because I don't want too, I want nice color into the back of the sky back here, but I just don't want it too bright or too mottled, too much interest in it. Let's just go through that right down, soften some of that. Now this is light, but you'll be surprised how far this will dry down. And sometimes it just takes a bit of, I'm always watching my value scale, so I know if I'm hitting a 7, this is going to dry right down perfect right down there. It's gonna work pretty nice. Then I'll reset some of those clouds right here one more time. A little dark at the bottom. A little bit of them climbing right along. A little bit of that one. Right along the edge there. Those clouds just kind of visually pull you in over there. We'll let some kind of take you off that way. Here. Just like that. There we go. Maybe and I'm always a big advocate of set the light to the clouds the same. So if you have a light on that side there, set a light to the cloud, that same, and push into a shadow side. So you get a light and shadow side of the cloud. Then the viewer always can see the correct light source, especially in those clouds here. So we'll set a light source right into those clouds there. Light is on the left. Let's put a wispy little bit right across there. Doesn't need to be a full cloud, just a little bit of wispy line to there like that. And you step back and you take a look, because this is more of an optical painting. I'll fix this up right here, and we'll take a photo of it. It's so much paint, and I want to let that dry down, and then I'll fix that up and maybe put one more stroke of light right into there like that. But it's an optical painting. It's made to be looked back about 6 to 8 feet. Because that looks pretty good that way. If I was doing this for a gallery or something, I'd go through, work the rocks again, and I might just go add just another little hit of the light. And you may do it with a palette knife. You may do it with the edge. Boy, look at those hands. You may do it with a palette knife. You may do it with a smaller brush. Put a different mark. Remember your 3 planes, your light plane, your receding plane, your shadow plane. Keep those going here. Remember, it's not about those. Make sure some of your waves, they can come in at slightly different angles. Like these, I come in this way slightly across here. Don't always have them straight across all the way, because waves come in different. These rocks are going to break waves, and they're going to come this way. You can put in a little more of this foamy action right here, just dragging your palette knife. There's tons of ways, and it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. It's a bit of paint and a board. Take your knife, drag along there, and you can take it back out. There's really great ways. There's a Dutch method that I used to use a lot, and I use it in mountains and stuff. And if there's something that I did towards the end of the painting, and I wanted to reset something, and you've got all this texture, you scrape over it like this. You wouldn't scrape this way, you'll dig into the wood, but you'll pull back this way with your scraper, and that removes the texture. And the Dutch did that in florals and portraits and landscapes and stuff all the time. They'd put on quite heavy, and then they'd scrape back with the edge of a razor and stuff till they got some of the motion and stuff that they really wanted to have. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can do some of this stuff here, and add little bits here, little bits of movement and stuff like that into it. That's kind of pretty, last little bits here, little lines. I take just the smallest little, and you control that by how you rock your knife. use more of the edge like that to draw a thin little water line, flatten it down just a bit to make more of a flatter line, and then all the way flat to make, so if I want to make some burbly water and stuff right in through here, all the way flat, and just drag it like that, and you got little water burbles there that work right like that. So you can see, and you can see you could do a lot here. And then all of a sudden you're up here with your waves all the way to your beach. I mean, up to your dunes. So you got to be careful. Don't go too far up. I'm a little farther forward than what I originally was planning to do, but especially with those last editions, so I may take those out. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. Just a quick little look at a seascape, landscape type seascape. They're really kind of fun to paint. All kinds of methods, all kinds of techniques, all different kinds of ways to do it. I do them with bristle brushes. I do all kinds of different, I do waves that curl, and there's tons of ways to do that. Foam that gets sucked back in. The beautiful thing about being an artist is I like to try them all, and that's what makes them fun, is you try them all. I don't like to just say, okay, I paint this way. I paint all different kinds of ways. So sometimes it's like in the day I wake up and go, wow, what am I going to paint today? Okay, well, maybe I'll do a seascape. Then it's how am I going to paint that seascape? What techniques am I going to use? Or I'm going to play around and create new ones. They're a lot of fun. Okay? Thanks for joining me. Make sure, if you like it, and this is also a special thank you. April for us, when we started publishing a lot more of these videos, was a great month for us. And I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel, who has watched our videos and referred that. It is wonderful how much our channel grew in through the month of April. So we want to keep that going. So, please hit the like button if you would do that. And leave a little comment down at the bottom. That helps us so much because it helps with the analytics of the video. Comments. When people, if you take just a minute, if you like this and you want to see more, just leave a little comment. Just a little comment there, because the more comments a video gets, the more distribution YouTube shows it to more people. Okay? It's just that simple. And that makes absolutely perfect sense. They want to show stuff that people are interested in. So if you want to see it, please help us out by liking the video and leaving a little comment, and we would really appreciate that. Okay? Alrighty. I'll see you on the next one next week. We'll go back and we're going to paint a glacier river scene, I think. Maybe I have a good idea for that. But I'll change it too. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next one.